Okay, this is a quick screencast covering Teaching Week 28, Realising Domain Models in Cake. In 27, we'd done a brief UML modelling session in which we'd modelled a hypothetical student placement application, and in Teaching Week 28 we started to implement the data model for that as the first step in our model view controller implementation. So I have open here the tutorial notes from that week. This is the basic Web Architectures VMware installation, so I've copied this from //ACES VMstore/users/common. You can copy that VMware image to your area under that folder, and that's a persistent thing for you for the rest of the year, so that's probably where you want to start. When you log in, it's student and the password is PA55W0RD, and everybody gets the same desktop. So when you log in, you get this public HTML page which you can edit, and I've opened up Blackboard there. You can see you've got your shell, a browser and a text editor. So if we look at the notes, the first thing it suggests we do, this is explaining how the commands are laid out. So the first thing it's suggesting we do is to get hold of Cake with this wget command. So I will just copy that. Okay, let's create a terminal window. And I think the lecture notes say do this in the public HTML folder. Okay, so there we are, there's the index.php. And we'll just type the wget command in there. Okay, that's wget downloading Cake for us, and it's downloaded into a file called 2.0.6. So we'll unzip that. Okay, so that's unzipped to this CakePHP folder here, which is not very pleasant. We'll rename that. So mv CakePHP to Cake. Okay, and let's get rid of the zip file we've downloaded. Good. Okay, that's the first step done. Next, it's suggesting that we set up a database. So as I explained in the lecture, Cake is driven by the data model that you set up, and it's the critical part of a project really to make sure you get your domain model right. So here we've got all the instructions we need in MySQL to set up a new database. So I will launch MySQL. Okay. So that's the MySQL command -u root -PA55W0RD, so that all the passwords in this student VM are PA55W0RD. And we can use the MySQL show databases command. Okay, and this shows you that I've got an old placements database hanging around, so let's get rid of that. Drop database. Okay. Okay, so that's gone. So we're going to create a completely new database. And here we go. So let's just copy this. We could copy the comments, but I'm just going to get the command. So that's the create database command. Okay. Show databases gives us this new database. MySQL needs us to grant permission to particular users to this database, so we'll copy these three grant clauses, which gives a user called placements permission to access it from lots of different places, and the password is placepass. So we just paste those in. Cool. Okay, so if we log out now, we should be able to do MySQL -u placements -p placepass, and we'll say we want to use the placements database. Okay. If we show tables in that database, there's nothing there, so we need to set up our model. Okay, so here's another MySQL command called use placements that lets us change databases, just in case. Okay, and you can see here's some SQL that we're suggesting for creating a database. So I'll just paste this in and then explain what it does. MySQL is unique and it has this drop if exists. Don't think that's pretty common, but the rest of the SQL is pretty standard DDL. You should be able to type it into Oracle except of course that some of the data types are different. So Oracle uses varchar2 instead of varchar and number instead of int. Okay, so I've highlighted the text, paste it in there. So if I show tables now, okay, students, job descriptions, and a link table between the two. If I type desk students, okay, that gives us our model, and you can see we've inserted some test data there. Good old Fred Flintstone. Select star from students. So remember in the lecture I was explaining that Cake needs some conventions to be followed, and in particular it names its tables plural. So student becomes students, which isn't particularly great, but it's one of those things you have to live with. Okay, so back to the notes. It next suggests that we configure Cake so that it knows about the database. So I'm just going to go to a fresh window here and open up the editor. Okay, and it's already open in the public HTML folder. We can see Cake, and in app core, config rather, we've got this core.php file. We'll need to edit that later, but the one we're interested in right now is database.php. So we rename that from database.php.default to database.php, and then we can edit it. And we're just going to set the development database up. So database config, data source is MySQL, that's right, persistent false, host, localhost, login, placements, password, place pass, and database we call placements. Okay, that's good. Save. The other thing we need to be aware of is that because we've installed MySQL in this public HTML folder, which is the user dir, again we explained in lectures that when you see a URL with this tilde character in, it's redirecting the browser to a home directory of the user, and that's really a development nicety for us. We wouldn't do that with production system. But in order to do that we need to tell Cake that we've actually changed where the files are hosted. So we need to add a line to this htaccess file, and it's rewrite base and slash tilde student slash cake. I think that's right with a slash at the end. We'll find out if it's not. And we need to do that in 3 files, unfortunately. So in the app there, htaccess, in web root there's a htaccess. We need to do it there as well. Save that. Okay, save that. And finally, at the root level. Have we done? No, there we go. Okay, I'll save that. So, that's unpacked Cake, and we've told Cake that we've moved the installation to tilde student Cake. So if we go to our browser window now, okay, we can type in localhost slash and then the tilde student, which tells the web server that we want to look in the student users public HTML folder. Okay, so if we go there we get the index.php, but we can go into the Cake folder. Pardon me. Okay, so there's our Cake installation, and we've got lots of warnings as explained in the lecture. So we're going to fix these now. We've got lots of permissions warnings, that's easily fixed. So we'll just use the blunderbuss approach for now. Chmod ugo plus rwx, so -r for the recursive flag on Cake. Quick refresh. Okay, that's good, fix that. And we need to change this security.salt and security cipher seed. As I explained, this is to do with encrypted values, and we need to change the distribution's default to something that's a little bit more private. It doesn't actually matter what you change it to, as long as you change it. So let's go over here, and if we close these down because we don't need to edit them again, if we open this core PHP, we'll be able to scroll down and in here. Okay, so we just change this value, any random text and random numbers in here. Save. Okay, and we'll go back to our browser window. Okay, so that's Cake nicely installed and ready to go. So we've set up a database, we've set up Cake. The next thing we need to do is to tell Cake about our model. Okay, so let's have a look in here. We've done this, we've done the database part, we've edited the data source config. Okay, do all that, good, yeah. Okay, this is editing the htaccess file, we've done that. Okay, so this is where we do the models. In this models folder, so these instructions are slightly different in that we've set this up now under public HTML. Okay, so we want to create a student model which will go in a file called student.php. So let's close this down, we don't need it. And if we just browse the structure, we've got Cake, app, and model is the folder. In there we want to create a new file. And this is called student.php. So remember the convention, tables are named plural, models are named singular in Cake. Okay, and we'll just paste that in quickly. Okay, it's very simple, all it defines is a name called student. When Cake sees this file, it'll bring in all the properties from the table, so it's reading the data dictionary when you start it up. That's our model, and we need to create a controller that's going to let us see this, the data in this model. So, oddly enough, we have a controllers folder. And in the document, okay, the convention here is we call it students controller, so plural with the word controller appended. Okay, so we've got that, close it down, and new file in the controller folder, students controller .php. Okay, and we paste our text in there, save that. Oh, it's not quite right, is it? Missing the angle bracket. Save. Okay, good. So that's set everything up. The important thing to notice here is this public scaffold. So we're telling Cake here we'd like it to create all the screens for us, all the list screens and the edit screens. So we're not doing any work here. That's our model setup and our controller. So if we go back to our browser, we've got Cake, and then so we type in students, lowercase. Okay, you can see that we've got our students page now. This is listing our data value, and we can click the edit link. Okay, that's great. We'll just change a value there to prove it can be done. Okay, and that was largely the tutorial for this teaching week. The only thing, there are two things to note specifically. This isn't just about learning PHP and Cake. What we're trying to do is to form an opinion about whether this kind of framework can improve web development as a process, whether it makes our life easier or harder. If you think about how much code you've had to write to do this from scratch, it would be quite a lot. So one thing to watch is if we go back to our database window, and if I start a MySQL shell up, here we go, show tables, and desk students. Okay, I can change this table now. So alter table students. So this is standard DML. Sorry, standard DDL, data definition language. Alter table students, add column, nickname. And we're going to give it a type of varchar, length of 32. Yep. Okay. So we've added this nickname column, and we go back to our application. If we refresh, okay, you'll see that a nickname column's appeared now, and we can re-edit this. Oh look, there we go, Fred. Submit. Okay, and we can view. Okay. So without any writing any code at all, we've added this nickname property, which is relatively good. And obviously, the other thing to be aware of is Cake has lots of code already written to do things like prevent SQL injection attacks. So you'd have to write lots of code on your own if you were building this into your own app, but cross-site scripting you're being defended against. So you've picked up a lot with this framework. The question you need to ask yourself is how much have we lost in doing that, and have we exposed ourselves to problems we might not have otherwise had by adopting a framework? So these are all things to think about, but the basic lesson here is setting up a single model and editing the data. Okay, all done. Thank you.